Hey guys, we're about to start a show today on the show that's called SmartLess that we're all part of.
Boy.
And right before we do the show, we do this little intro thing that's really interesting and fun to do just because
Do we need somebody to come over and fucking give you a hug? What is happening
We started
with you?
too early. It's 12:20.
Yeah, you're falling apart.
Welcome to SmartLess.
SmartLess.
We had two shows today, and we just had a little break. And what did you do in your break? I'll tell you exactly what I did. I made a couple eggs, put some avocado and some toast, put it all together, and I put it in my goddamn mouth.
First of all, to be fair, you weren't really asking what we did.
Yeah,
you
no,
just,
I
why don't you just tell us? So don't dress it up as a question like, what did you guys do? What I did was blah, blah, blah.
Well,
that's all you wanted. You just wanted to tell us that.
Yes, exactly.
And he probably spent the whole hour in between the two podcast recordings going, boy, what should I start off the chat with? Oh, I know. I'll just tell him what I ate. That'll be a great conversation starter. Sean, you're the worst.
Also, Sean, we don't live in like 1950s Schenectady, New York, where we don't have access to avocado. Anybody can get an avocado now, so it's not a big deal.
And you're not supposed to give any thought. You're not supposed to pre-think what we're going to be talking about.
I'm not. I literally just sat down. I climbed like, I'm still wiping the eggs off my face.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it's a pretty what the kids would say, pretty weird flex.
Oh.
So just if we're being fair.
All right.
Will, what did you do?
So now it is a topic of conversation.
I'm going to go with it.
Some charity. I just went and did some charity.
Oh, did you help some people out?
Yeah, I went and helped. No, you know what I did? I made Archie some toast and a little bit of
everybody's
breakfast.
carbo loading. When's the big race, guys?
And, when's the big race?
Yeah, I worked.
Hang on, Sean. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Doing what?
I was watching a cut of episode 407. And
of Ozark?
The Ozarks?
Yeah.
You know what? I'll agree with you. Watching Ozark is work. I agree with you.
I walked right into it. I deserve it. Mm-hmm.
Are you, Jason? Can you feel Can you see the barn door from here? At the end of Ozark? How are you feeling right now emotionally about it? For
Barn
real?
door. I love it. I'm feeling great about it because I feel like it's just like, remember we talked about in the last episode about trying to make a friend of mortality and hoping that you at least used your years correctly. It's kind of like what this is like. The show's not going to go on forever. So when it comes to an end, you'd want to look back and hope that you're proud of it. And I think we all are.
And you're directing the last episode as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I always say this to you. I love your episodes that you direct. I always notice a difference. I do like them, and it's hard for me to give you that compliment.
Thank you.
Would you?
But I'm ready for the butt. Here it comes.
No. Do you feel added pressure now? I mean, it's like a little bit of like the leave. Like, what is the leave that you know?
The only thing that I'm trying to focus on is the writers, specifically Chris Mundy, just did a great job of sort of trying to land the plane correctly. In his mind with the story and the themes and all that stuff, and they really did. And so I'm just hoping that we don't screw it up with the way we acted or photographed.
Just to service that. Yeah. Service.
When do I pitch my part? For the finale. I want to come in at the finale.
November would probably be
Do you have a webcam? Are you comfortable self-taping?
Yeah, I'll do it right after.
I had, Jason, it's funny you asked that because now that I realize I shouldn't have said that to you. I'm doing this, you guys know I'm doing this Netflix show, this new show, and it's kind of like improv-y and whatever. And I had this lovely sound guy saying to me yesterday, the end of our first week, and he's putting my mic on, and he goes, man, you gotta do a lot. You gotta know all that dialogue, and then you gotta improvise, and you gotta do all this stuff. And he goes, I mean, it's a lot of pressure is on you to really make sure the pressure is really on you. As I'm starting the day at 7 a.m., and I look at him, and I'm like, he's a great guy. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? I gotta... Thanks for reminding me.
It cost me $50. It cost me $50, but he was open to it. And
I'm so stressed out. I started the day like in a whole walking towards it. I was like, it is on me. I really gotta step up on this, on this next scene.
It's all on you.
Anyway, well, talking about stepping up in filmmaking and pressure, we're gonna find out if if our guest today feels any pressure, he
Probably asleep by now. Sorry, guest.
he could be. But I will say this: I tell you what, I don't do is I don't fall asleep when I'm watching his films. He has been making incredible films for a long time, for many, many years. He's originally from New York and then lives in New Hampshire. He's a filmmaker who's made, put it this way, he's garnered a bunch of awards, including 2 Oscar nominations, 2 Grammy Awards, 15 Emmy Awards. He has made some of the, probably the best documentaries any of us has ever watched throughout the course of our lives.
Wait a second.
From Brooklyn Bridge to Statue of Liberty to baseball.
Are you kidding me?
To Civil War and to now the new Muhammad
One
Ali
of my
documentary that's
heroes,
coming out this fall.
Ken
Ladies and gents,
Burns.
Ken Burns.
Wow.
My
Hey,
God.
guys.
Good
Yeah.
Lord,
Ken
sir.
Burns.
And he's in a
Wow.
booth. And he's in a booth. I love
This is so cool. I've seen so many of your films. It's so great to meet you.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, it's
Lord.
super cool.
I will say that you, sir, are responsible for my addiction to baseball. I followed every sport a little bit for my whole life up until about 20 years ago. And maybe it's more than that now, maybe 25 years ago when I saw the baseball documentary, multi-part documentary. And now that's all I follow because that series of documentaries got me to see it more as a game as opposed to a sport, and all the history and the pageantry and the elegance of it, and all the people you got to speak about it. Thank you for that. A moment
Well,
of
that's great.
you know.
It's the best game that's ever been invented. That's for sure. But it's so interesting that we don't sort of think about the obvious, that this is the only sport in which the defense has the ball.
Yeah.
And it's not the ball or the puck or
let's not get crazy.
pigskin that scores. It's the person.
Yeah. And there's no time limit.
There's no
we're
clock.
there till there's a winner. Yeah.
Well, you know what? By the way, while we're disparaging other sports, and I'm going to excuse the shot at hockey, Ken, because I'm such an
You
incredible
got to be
fan
careful
of
there,
yours,
Ken.
and
He will climb through the mic. He's a
I
crazy
have such
Canadian.
reverence for what you do. Football. It occurred to me last year that American football, and I want to hear your views on this because you're a very learned man. American football, only like 3 people ever touch the ball. So you can be a guy who's a lineman on either side. Pick your side, by the way, defensive or offensive lineman, and you can have a Hall of Fame career. Yeah, I played 18 years in the NFL, and you never touched the ball. So are you a football player or are you a wrestler?
Yeah. It's okay, but George Wills had a great line about that in our baseball series. He said that football has 2 of the worst habits in American life: frequent committee meetings punctuated by violence.
That's the perfect description. Well, now let me ask you. First of all, I want to say this: you're standing. You're in a booth. Are you standing in the booth?
I'm sitting in a booth
Okay.
On a stool.
on a stool.
Well, you have incredible posture. You have incredible posture. You have the posture of somebody who's standing. Because I often
I
stand.
can put a book on my head if you guys want to keep up with the finishing school aspects of this.
No. But I wanted to say that I love that you're in a booth. It really tickles me. So I am going to we're going to jump all over the place a little bit. And the reason I bring it up is your films are such incredible films, and you've told so many great stories and so many aspects of, and I'm get into this a little bit later, of American life. You've dissected so many different areas that have, represent a real cross-section of kind of what makes America America or makes Americans American. Mm-hmm. But in order to tell those stories over and by the way, Jason and I hate the term storytellers, but truly you do tell a story. Mm-hmm. And you use narrators and voiceover artists who aren't necessarily voiceover artists. And what I'm getting to is this: it's 2-part. It's like, by the way, this question is 12-part.
I'm familiar with that.
Yes, the first voiceover I think that you used. Was David McCullough the first real narrator that you had for one of your films?
Yeah, I got him to narrate I filmed him on camera, and I was hoping that he could be the third person. narrator of it, and for a while his folks were sort of we don't know, but I always knew that in most cases I needed to have a complementary chorus of first person voices that would read the letters. Now that's not true in my most recent film made with Sarah Burns and David McMahon on Muhammad Ali, but if it warrants it, if it's a place, I'm just finishing a film on Benjamin Franklin, and Mandy Patinkin is the voice of Franklin, and there's several other people who are reading first person.
Exciting.
That's so cool.
In addition to Peter Coyote doing the third person. In the case of Ali, it's Keith David. But David did the first 5 or 6 of the first 7 films, and stopped at Civil War.
And stopped at Civil War. So David McCullough, if you guys don't know who he is, incredible historian, and your relationship, am I right? Your relationship started because the documentary you did on the Brooklyn Bridge was based on his book. Is that right?
Well, I was given his book called The Great Bridge, the epic story of the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, and I literally finished it in one gulp. And I said to my partners, we just started our company in the mid-'70s, and I just said, and we all lived in the same apartment. This is our next film. And they looked at me like I was crazy, like I was trying to sell them the Brooklyn Bridge. But he had made that story come alive. So the film I made, the first half is the history. The second half, this is an hour-long film. I probably couldn't do an hour-long film to save my life now, was sort of the response to it in the last century of, just ingenuity and hope and promise and the way it's been a backdrop for so many things, good and bad. So it's not sort of based on that. He just told the best story of how it got built, and and I got him to narrate, and he taught us a lot in the course of narrating about writing, which was a hugely great thing. And he appeared on camera and then went on to narrate The Shakers and Huey Long and the Statue of Liberty and the Congress and the Civil War. And I made a couple others in there, and he didn't do it.
And you're right, he is a great storyteller. Even when he gives speeches, when he accepts awards and stuff, his speech writing is excellent, and his cadence, everything about his voice also is really interesting.
Well, people gave me a really hard time when I said I wanted to use McCullough, because they presumed that you would use an actor, out of that stable of narrator, Alexander Scourby, Orson Welles, kind of deep, basso profundo kind of voice. And I said, no, this guy knows the story. Well, isn't it better to inhabit the meaning of it so completely and fully? And I have then moved and continued to use amazing people. Sally Kellerman has been a narrator in a film, besides Keith David and Peter Coyote, who are great actors in their own right. We've just had Jason Robards has read. Ossie Davis has been a narrator. He narrated a film on Thomas Jefferson. And the first question at the television critics, some guy said, hey, Ossie Davis is black. And I went, what? He's black?
Yeah, right.
What?
Who did the narrating in baseball? I want to say John Chancellor, but that's
You got it right.
I do.
It was so
Okay.
funny because when McCullough just said, I'm going to go on and do something else, and he's a writer. And this was, I was taking him away from the day job, and somebody had said, I'd heard that somebody told me that John Chancellor was from Pittsburgh, where David was from. So I tried out Chancellor. It was funny because I really had to the late John Chancellor, really wonderful human being. I really had to sort of break him like a wild horse of the kind of announcer's voice. So the baseball series begins, and he would read it. In 1909, a man named Charles Hercules Ebbets began secretly buying up adjacent parcels of land in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn, including the site of a garbage dump called Pigtown.
How do you
Because of
remember
the
that?
pigs that once ate their fill there and the stench that still filled the air.
Yeah,
Oh,
in the
remember
world,
that
good.
word perfect. How do you?
Because I'm the scratch narrator. I read it.
But
I read
you've-
it for all the films.
Of course,
That
he
was
lays down all the
30
scratch.
years ago. Oh,
So-
That's amazing.
unbelievable.
I can go on, but what happened is I broke him, and so I said, look, you're just talking to your grandchildren. Just make sure they lean in. So he goes, in 1909, a man named Charles Hercules Ebbets began, and like that, he goes, oh, you want me to be God's stenographer. None of the ego, all of the meaning. And I go, that's it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I just want to say the one more. So I my last thing on that is as a voice guy, a guy who's made a lot of my career around my voice, I am such a fan of David McCullough. It's funny you say, because that's not what he does. That is not his day job. And I think he's so excellent at it. And I remember actually right after 9/11, somebody put out a commercial. It was like the first. Do you remember that? And they used his voice to kind of calm America down. They said, "Everybody, everything's going to be okay. Everybody relax." And I was like, "Yeah, he's the perfect guy to tell us."
It's totally perfect, and it was so funny the grief I got just because he didn't have the credentials. I said he knows this story cold. He knows American history.
As a voiceover guy, I would say he's one of the best. You're like this guy. He's just got it. He's up there. He's in the pantheon. Sorry, Sean. I keep cutting you
that's
off.
okay. I'm fascinated with your work ethic, and because you've done so many films and your work-life balance, it just seems like I want to know how you do it. I want to know production and because you have so many films coming out, you've done so many films. How do you do it?
So work-life balance, that's really great. So you should have told me I'd get both my ex-wives here and they could tell you about that. Look, I just turned 68 and I'm so greedy. I'm working on 7 films, not counting Muhammad Ali, which I'm in the evangelical stage. I have 4 different teams. I've had 2 or 3 teams for an awfully long time. It's just like, if I were given 1,000 years to live, I wouldn't run out of topics in American history. And so, we're pretty good at generaling and marshaling our resources. So, we're shooting a few, we're in pre-production in a few, we're editing 3, and I just move. I never miss an important thing, and I delegate some stuff that I used to do obsessively before, but that's healthy. And the other thing is, I'm telling the same story over and over again. And each film asks a deceptively simple question. Who are we? Who are these strange and complicated people who like to call themselves Americans? And what does an investigation of the past tell us about not only that moment or that event, but where we are now and where we may be going? And so you don't ever answer the question. You sound it deeply in each one. And they're recurring themes. Everybody says, well, history repeats itself. Of course it doesn't. There's never been a moment when history has repeated itself. But Mark Twain is supposed to have said, it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And that's a really good way of doing it. You begin to appreciate the rhymes. Race, for example, you make a film on Thomas Jefferson. Here's a guy who distills a century of Enlightenment thinking into one sentence that begins, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And yet he owned hundreds of human beings in his lifetime and didn't see the hypocrisy of the contradiction.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have a nation that is, up until now and tomorrow, completely struggling to deal with the question of race. And so I can think of a handful of films of the nearly 40 that I've done that don't do it. I could count on the fingers of one hand the films that aren't about it.
Yeah, of course, and it plays a big role. And I know that you've discussed that, and you've discussed recently this idea of people sort of stepping up and saying why should a white filmmaker like you be the guy telling these stories and stuff? And I know that also your answer is, well, we all have questions to ask, and why can't we all play a part in asking those questions? And it's just as valid for me to ask as anybody else. And I'm sorry, I'm not putting words in your mouth. You tell me if.
Yeah, no. I think it's important to tell a lot of stories, but I also think it's important to remember that we're all in this together and connected. And I just came across, it's so interesting that you just brought that up, because I came across this great, just a couple of days ago, this great quote by Martin Luther King that is so totally to this. This is what he said. It's so perfect. He goes, all life is interrelated. All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality, which means is my beat's American history. And I can't say I'm only going to do one sort of thing, because the warp and woof of it is so intertwined and so interconnected that how can you not? And I don't go looking for it in most cases. Obviously, if I pick jazz or I pick Jackie Robinson or Jack Johnson or in this case Muhammad Ali, it's going to be dealing with the question of race, but so does the Civil War. So does every other film we made.
Yeah, and like you said, it comes up a lot because it is such an integral part. It's woven into the fabric of America. It's part of, you can't escape it.
It's our original sin.
Yeah,
we're under the thrall of 3 viruses right now,
Yeah.
the COVID and a 402-year-old virus of white supremacy and racial intolerance, started in 1619, and then an age-old human one that everybody's been writing about and talking about it, which is misinformation and lies and paranoia and conspiracy. And when they meet together, it's just a shit show.
It's also the other title of our show.
Yeah.
The shit show.
And we will be right back. Hey, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of it or not, but we get support from Go Henry.
Guys, helping your kids be financially literate can make a huge difference in their future, and Go Henry can help.
Go Henry's debit card for kids and app for parents is an easy, super fun way to teach kids good money habits designed to help young people ages 6 to 18 learn about money firsthand and build financial independence.
Will, you've been using this with your 2 sons, haven't you?
Go Henry's allowed me to figure out a way to make money management easier as a parent, and it gives my kids this empowerment that they feel like they're kind of more in control of their finances.
Got to get an early relationship with money.
It gives them independence, and it's a very positive experience for my kids as they deal with money and for things like, using their cards to make purchases online or in stores or like ATM, and they can track all their spending in real time, and they can set, savings goals and make donations, all that kind of stuff. And it's helping them learn to budget and to practice generosity.
It's simpler than handling cash, and it also allows for boundary setting and flexibility. You probably should have just said.
Jason, you should do it just for the boundary setting. You know what I mean?
You can set spending limits and control where the card can be used online or in stores or ATM, and receive real-time notifications about how much your kid has spent and where they've spent it.
Bottom line, get started at GoHenry.com, and you're going to get 1 month free if you use the promo code SmartLess. That's 1 month free if you weren't listening at GoHenry.com. Promo code, Sean?
SmartLess.
You got it. We get strong cradle-like support from ZipRecruiter.
There's some things in life that I like to pick out myself. So I know that I've got the one that's best for me. Like,
let me guess.
Okay, go ahead.
Cereal.
Yep.
Cereal, right?
Yep.
And
Well, here's my point. What if you could do the same thing? Choose your ideal candidate before they even apply for a job. That's where ZipRecruiter's invite to apply comes in. See, ZipRecruiter gives you, the hiring manager, the power to pick your favorites from top candidates. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/smartless.
how does invite to apply work? I will tell you.
Yeah, please.
When you post a job on ZipRecruiter, they send you the most qualified people for your job. Then you can easily review the candidates and invite your top choices to apply for your job. Simple enough, right?
Get this. So this is kind of nuts. So, you're probably not going to believe me, but this is kind of, so bear with me for one. Yeah. Okay. So I get it. So Lauren Webb is the SVP, senior.
1 B or 2 B's on the web.
It's 2 B's on the web.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So Lauren Webb, 2
There
B's.
she is.
Yeah, she's over at Bendulian. Yeah, so you know her, obviously. So she raves about ZipRecruiter's invite to apply. Yeah. She says, and I'm quoting here.
Right, good.
And I'm quoting. She says, I love that feature because we have a much higher follow-through rate if I invite candidates. And it's easy for me and it's easy for them. And I'm like, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. In fact, according to ZipRecruiter internal data, jobs where employers use ZipRecruiter's invite to apply get, on average, 2.5 times more candidates, which helps make for a faster hiring process.
And in fact, you can see for yourself. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/SMARTLESS to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/smartless.
And I'm going to spell ZipRecruiter for you, too, because that's tougher than SmartLess. It's ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
SmartLess is supported by Wondery Clothing. Wondery is a fresh perspective on performance apparel. Everything is designed to work out in, but doesn't look or feel like it.
That's right, Sean. These pieces are designed to perform while still looking great. They'll take you from the gym to the coffee shop, to whatever other errands you might have that day. This one day, I'm in my Wondery.
Okay.
I'm pushing weight, just blasting backs and buys, and I'm feeling great about myself. Then I go to a gas station. I fill up my car, same clothes, same clothes.
What happened next?
Then I went to the zoo just to feed the giraffes like I like to do. I'm dressed totally appropriately, and I feel great. Everything's stretching, everything's wicking, everything's happy. Then I went to church.
What?
Sat down, had a great church session, and then I went to my painting class.
Oh my God, what a long day this was
Crushed
for
that.
you.
I'm still,
in the same clothes.
I looked great. Sorry, you go on.
Another thing we love,
Tell me.
Vuori is reducing and offsetting 100% of their plastic footprint from 2019 and beyond.
Listen, Vuori is an investment in your happiness, listener. They're going to give you 20% off your first purchase. So why don't you go get yourself some of the most comfortable, most versatile clothing on the planet at Vuori.com/smartless. That's Vuori, VUORI.com/smartless.
Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, you'll also get free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns.
Go to Vuori.com/smartless and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing. Go on.
And now back to the show.
You've been making films about the American experience and about America for the, whatever, it's been over 40 years. Do you have a cynical view now of where we're headed and where we've come from? Is it doom and gloom, or do you feel okay?
Well, I don't think anybody has the luxury at this moment of being cynical. Cynical's like just debauchery is just a luxury of too much time and too many things that you're not doing with your hands that you begin doing with your hands.
Yeah.
It's really serious. There are three great crises before this: the Civil War, the Depression, and World War II. This is equal to it. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time that we've got... Lincoln gave this great talk when he was very, very young to the Young Men's Lyceum on a Saturday afternoon, I think it was. And people will write in and tell you that wasn't a Saturday afternoon. It was an afternoon conversation about foreign policy. And he said, this is when he's like not even 29. He's a lawyer in Springfield. He said, "Whence shall we expect the approach of danger? Shall some transatlantic giant step the earth and crush us at a blow?" And then he answered his own question. "Never. All the armies of Europe, Asia, and Africa could not by force take a drink from the Ohio River or make a track in the Blue Ridge in the trial of 1,000 years. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we will live through all time or die by suicide." And we're looking right down the muzzle of that gun.
That quote is so great. It's also, there's a band called Titus Andronicus, and they actually have that quote. Have you ever heard that song?
Yes. Yeah.
It's pretty cool, the way they use that.
It's really cool. I that's the way I opened the Civil War series. I mean, it's the end of the intro, and you just kind of like go, oh, that's right. We got these two great oceans that provide this kind of geographical force field, and two relatively benign neighbors, north and south, that provide the same thing. And so if we're going to hell, it's from within.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's the biggest test.
Tell Jason what the Civil War is.
Well, it's instead of criminal prosecution, there's civil prosecution. Is it like a courtroom drama that you've written?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's about people fighting politely.
That you've written.
Is Corbin Burnson in it, or
yes, okay. Right, yeah, yes,
I'm in.
Exactly. Yeah, you're totally in.
With all of your passion and respect for America and its history and its promise and its idea, and all the sort of altruism you've shown us with the stuff that you've given us to watch and learn from. Do you feel a sense of urgency right now to speak even louder and work even quicker with something? Yeah. Because obviously what you do takes so much time and so much care that even if you started something, on January 7th to address the crescendo that we seem to have hit, it ain't gonna hit us for another year or so.
Three years for me. As people ask me about Ali, they go, "So why Ali now?" And I go, "I started this in 2014. What are you talking about? I didn't, Black Lives Matter, Me Too, it's not there, but they're all relevant. Everything rhymes."
If people ever reached out to you and said, like, from other countries or other parts of the globe and said, like, "Can you tell really great stories about America, but we have this going on over here, and we would love if you would tell this story about what's happening in our country."
Well, it's interesting. The longest film that's ever been shown at the Cannes Film Festival is not Shoah, which is a phenomenal film, but our series on the Second World War called The War that came out in 2007.
Sure. But it's American-centric, though.
And people, it was completely American-centric, and we told the story of the greatest cataclysm in human history
Yeah.
from the point of view of 4 geographically distributed American
Brilliant
towns.
way in, yeah.
But it was this amazing group of people, like a little United Nations, that went from one screening room to the other as Cannes moved it from a big screening room in the main building to smaller rooms in that same building. And some people just sort of gave up their agenda and watched it, and then went back to Denmark or then went back to Japan and said, oh, we want to do this same sort of stuff. But our films play really well. The Civil War and now Ali and jazz have gone all over the place. And
That's so
what was great is that people felt that the Civil War series, I got this from Canadians and Mexicans as well as everybody else. This is the Rosetta Stone. I finally kind of understand my complicated neighbor to the south.
Yeah.
That was the general letter from Canadians.
I didn't learn American history in the same way. I'm a big fan of history, and it's exclusively pretty much what I read. And I've had to sort of educate myself on American history as I got older, because and of course your film was instrumental in helping me understand the Civil War and the intricacies. But I will say I've often thought I wish that Ken Burns would make a movie about Eastern Europe, because I think that
I am right now, by the way.
Are you?
You are?
Yeah, I'm making a film called The U.S. and the Holocaust, and it's what we knew and when we knew it, what we did, what we didn't do it. But the central story is Poland.
Oh, yes, those stories, Poland, ethnic Poles in the Ukraine. If you could start getting into that, we could really start understanding why the world is the way it is today.
Stay tuned next fall.
Oh my
That's
God,
amazing.
Ken, I'm
Hey,
coming
Ken,
over.
Are there subjects or things that you will not touch or go near or don't want
No,
to?
no. I mean, I have up until now been entirely American history, and and what I tell people is that I'm a filmmaker. I'm not trained in history. I took a Russian history course my first year of college. The last time I took American history course was 11th grade. When they put a gun to your head and make you take it.
Right.
I love it, but I'm a storyteller, and I just happen to work in history the way a painter might work in oil as opposed to watercolor, or do still lifes as opposed to landscapes, and that's it. And it works out pretty well, because the word history is mostly made up of the word story plus high, which is a good way to begin a story, and
Sure.
and that's what I've been doing. I have to admit, the team, my oldest daughter Sarah Burns and her husband David McMahon and I, we made the Central Park 5, and Jackie Robinson. I EP'd a film they did called East Lake Meadows that came out last year about a public housing story, Atlanta, horrible, amazing, transcendent story. But we've done this Ali thing together, and the next thing we're doing is my first non-American topic on Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow.
I can't wait.
A gay bastard who, is arguably, in the running for the person of the last millennium.
Yeah.
Sean, wasn't the title of your autobiographical one act?
Absolutely. Ken and I are working on that.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken, was Lincoln gay?
I don't know. How do we know? There's what you're referring to, Sean, is that his partner, Joshua Speed, they exchanged letters that are intimate and full of, I can't wait till you get to the inn tonight where we could be able to touch and hold each other. And so there was this presumption that the language of intimacy, which is true of women and of people in general, I don't know.
Yeah.
Jesus, Sean, don't put him on the spot.
Does it matter? It doesn't matter.
It
Is
doesn't
Will
matter,
gay?
Sean. Why put him on?
And also,
hey, Ken, was Jim Neighbors gay?
Hey, Ken, did George Washington's mouth really stink?
No, he did not. He did not have wooden teeth, by the way, guys. And he did tell lies. Everybody lies, and he couldn't throw a dollar coin across the Potomac.
Can I ask you about the filmmaking part of it? I don't mean to dork out for a second, but the way in which you light and literally the focal length you use on a lot of your interviews, the shallow depth of field, the single source lighting, the music that you choose,
The single camera.
yeah, whether it be a tiny piano or even your use of the Beastie Boys mix-up in the addendum to the baseball thing, the 10th inning. I mean, talk to me about your taste in filmmaking and your enjoyment of working with multiple departments to shape that experience for the audience.
It's a great question, and you've asked a lot of questions. Maybe if style is the authentic application of technique, right? If somebody has that's a style, it just means that you've used the tools at your disposal in a way that seems to be authentic or genuine, organic, consistent. And then you can stand in a room of Cezanne paintings and go, wow, they're all different if you go up close, but they're all they share something, which is an authenticity coming from one person. So we all, as filmmakers, have lots of techniques at our disposal. I could reduce it for clarity to 8. There are 4 visual and 4 oral. And the visual are obvious, still photographs, and energetic exploring of them, trying to will them alive, trusting that they had a past and a future to the arrested moment that they represented. Footage, live cinematography of the now quiet, whatever you want to say, and interviews. And then orally, you have a third-person narrator. You have first-person voices. You have sound effects as complicated as a feature film. And you have music. Music, Jason, is the art of the invisible, as Wynton Marsalis describes. It's the only art form that you don't see. And so it works faster than any other one. And so what we do is in our process, we don't have a set research and writing period that produces a script that informs shooting and editing. However improvisational you might be within the context of those, we never stop researching and we never stop writing, and it makes us corrigible to the end. But more importantly, we don't add the music at the end. We bring it up to early in the editing, if not just before the editing process, so that the music, its pace and rhythm, its dynamism drives the scene. And it may be authentic to that period. It may be using, Beastie Boys, or it may be using rap in a later period, but it also may be free and liberated from that. The most memorable tune from the Civil War is not from the Civil War period. Everything else was either a folk tune, a hymn, or a marching song, except for this one thing, Ashokan Farewell, which was written by one of my session musicians that bridges the gap, a Jewish guy from the Bronx who wrote the most beautiful Scotch-Irish lament I've ever heard, Ashokan Farewell. So what we're doing is we want it just to work, and we'll just use whatever works. And this Muhammad Ali thing it's got Philip Glass, it's got some original compositions by this kid, wonderful composer named Jaleel Beats, guy we've worked with named Dave Sierra, lots of R&B, lots of soul, lots of funk, and then some rap and other stuff. And sometimes we import Jaleel Beats back to the early 60s when there wouldn't have been anything like this, to animate a fight, or maybe we're using it authentically, that this is the year this guitar riff from Jimi Hendrix came out, so let's use that. And that's the same thing is true of, I'm finishing Benjamin Franklin. The stuff that we're using is stuff from the 18th century that he would have heard, or that it would have been composed for an instrument called the glass harmonica that he invented. I mean, music is the most important element in a way because it undergirds everything.
Yeah.
But remind me, I think you just said it. You do pick some things or compose some things if you're not using needle drops, as they say. And before you see the footage, even that inspires.
Well, that's how we start editing. I mean, for Civil War, just to give you an example, I went into old hymnals and old songbooks, and I had somebody plunk them out on the piano. And whenever something hit me, I go, that one.
Okay.
And then we go into the studio with session musician and probably do 30 different recordings. Some of them a single hand on a piano, rubato, untethered to any kind of pace. Some of them adding different instrumentation, sometimes subtracting that instrumentation, sometime ensemble.
And that music will then inform the edit.
Yeah. And Jason, I have literally extended a sentence so that the words fit the phrase of music, and I've cut a sentence so that the words fit the phrase of music, because music is God.
I love.
Really quick, I think this is kind of interesting. Steven Spielberg in E.T., so he heard John Williams' score at the end of the movie. John scored it before he saw the movie, and Steven he didn't want to cut any of it. That's why the long goodbye between Elliot and E.T., it's very, very, very long, because Steve Spielberg didn't want to cut one single note of it.
He knows. He gets it, because at some point, if you think about scoring is a mathematical term. That means you're all watching the film, and you got headphones, and you're looking, and you want to have that beat at exactly this and that. And we don't do that. We'd rather move the action to the beat that is already there. That's part of the authenticity.
I remember even on our little show we did in Venice, a Netflix show called Flaked, I always knew that we were going to end the whole series on this song "Range Life" by Pavement and the great Steve Malcolmus, who actually scored the show as well. But I always wanted to, and I didn't tell him until the very end of the edit process of the second season. I said, I've always wanted to use "Range Life," and I hope you're okay with that. And he was like, yeah. And so we had this sort of single shot of me riding my bicycle through Venice, and we shut all these intersections off, et cetera. And then we had this really sneaky little edit as I passed this van, but we thought that we'd timed it anyway. We get into post, and it's just not quite long enough to fit for where I wanted to hit. So we did a lot of trickery and extended shots and extended little pieces because of it has to, it cannot be one fucking beat off. It has to be exactly to Steve's song.
Yeah, intact.
That's the most important thing.
You got to serve the music, even though it is in the film process traditionally not an afterthought, but something done at the end.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be, it's not icing on the cake. It's fudge. It's baked in there.
They sent me a little screener of the Muhammed Ali documentary film that I'm
I'm coming
so
over.
excited to
Hang
watch
on
more
a
of.
second.
I want one of those.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I've got it, by the way. I've got it, you guys. It's as excellent as you'd thought it would be and hoped it would be, and even more so. And it occurred to me, Muhammad Ali, I mean, we live in a day and age now where we have access to, for any sort of, especially living figure, there's a tremendous amount of documentation of that person's life. There's video and film and et cetera and photographs. Muhammad Ali, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong a lot. There are a lot of photographs. There's a lot of video of him, and he must have been one of the first people of whom there was a lot of these things that in existence. Is that right?
You'd be surprised. He is one of the most photographed and interviewed person. He's such good copy. But I think what we tend to do is, because of the time I'm given, we can let go of our own preconceptions. Sometimes we're fitting Muhammad Ali into our thought. There are lots of great documentaries on him that I love. They're mostly about a particular fighter. A couple of years, we wanted to do soup to nuts. Birth and boyhood, Louisville, segregated, Jim Crow, Kentucky, to death by Parkinson's 5 years ago, not that long ago. In a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. So that's our comprehensive thing. And what we were able to find by spending the 7 years doing it is all of this material that you wouldn't necessarily have. It doesn't serve a purpose. It belies the thing that at this point he was supposed to be this way or that way, voluble, and then he's despised for that volubility because athletes aren't supposed to brag, and certainly not black athletes. That's not our definition. But he's redefining what a black manhood means. Maybe Jackie Robinson, a subject I've treated a few times, was the earlier generation. This is an entirely new one. He joins the Nation of Islam, this separatist, hardly Islamic cult. It's just a cult. And he's about separation when Americans are finally getting hip to the mainstream integrationist movement of the civil rights. And then he refuses the draft. So he's this pariah, and he works his way back in interesting ways. You want the music to reflect that, but you also want the footage. You don't go looking for never before seen or that, because you want it to work. Everything has to serve the telling of the story, but you realize that we are so complicated. As Whitman said, we contain multitudes. Do I contradict myself? Ali does that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've got it just downstairs in the main cockpit of the editing room in neon, in cursive, lowercase, it says, "It's complicated." There isn't a filmmaker in the world who doesn't, when a scene is working, going to go, "Don't touch it." But when we find new and contradictory information, we just go, "Okay, let's make it even more complicated. Let's add undertow if it's true to that story."
And the access to that unique material, though, is it just a question of you have the luxury of taking more time to seek it out and find it, or is it a question of licensing it, and do you have to pay for it before you say you're going to use it?
No.
I don't want to get into the weeds of the business of it all, but
yes, you do.
Please come and visit us while we're editing.
I would love
We
that.
have time code and watermarks. You got to look through a lot of stuff to see it. So you would presume that filmmaking is architectural. That is, you're building something. And while it'll have scaffolding and false work, that will will be taken away eventually. It's just additive. It's subtractive. You know, I live in New Hampshire here. We make maple syrup that takes 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. And that's what it is. Our editing room floor is covered with really good scenes.
Yeah.
And so we're pulling out stuff and trying to honor the negative space of creation, what's not there. So we need the time. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity in order to collect all the material. So at any given moment, Jason, there may be 40 other photographs that could fit in at that moment. It's rarely that case. But you have those kind of options, and you're just trying to figure. And sometimes you're making a decision, well, that's got a light background, and a dark background has a kind of warmth, and the psychology of the reception of that image, you know, is that. And I'm saying, let's just change it. I know the other one's sharper and a little bit better, and we're looking through watermarks and time code, and finally.
Well, what would you do with 40 gallons of sap?
Well, first of all, I was just going to say that you know, it's funny. All of my films, all the good scenes ended up on the cutting room floor.
We'll be right back.
The support is deep and plentiful from Lending Tree. When you want to find great rates, organize your finances, or just make smarter money decisions, Lending Tree is here for you. With the Lending Tree app, listener, you can see all your bank accounts at a glance so you can better understand your spending and saving and build a budget that works for you. You can monitor your credit score, explore ways to improve your credit, and get automatic alerts to protect your identity. Plus, Lending Tree can help make sure you're getting your best deal on loans, insurance, credit cards, and more through their wide network of banks and lenders. This sounds dry, but it's very helpful, so listen up. Lending Tree gives you personalized tips and insights to help you save money and reach your financial dreams. Whether you want to pay off debt, buy a home, build credit, or just buy a bike, they make things a little bit easier. Lending Tree has your back and your front for all your short, long-term, and mid-range goals. For more than 20 years, Lending Tree has helped millions of people simplify their finances with trusted education, expert advice, and comprehensive services. Almost done. There are no subscriptions, no fees, no hassle, just easy, honest, straightforward, and friendly support to make the most of your money and achieve greater financial health. Here comes the call to action. Download the free Lending Tree app now and get started, and see why thousands of people turn to Lending Tree every day and night for smarter, easier finances. Terms and conditions may apply. NMLS #1136.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. So listen up, everybody. I think it's time for all of us to acknowledge that it's important to start having a dialogue in a way that's really, really, that's something that kind of blows the lid off the stigma surrounding talking about mental health. And for me, it's about you're always going to get more of whatever it is you put out there. So if you're putting out good positive vibes, you're going to get more of that back. And that also goes for negative vibes. So my point is, if you want to start talking about having a better positive experience in your life, if there are things that are getting in the way of you having that, whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever it is, there is a solution for that, and there's a place that you can go to really start addressing that in a real way. And you're saying to yourself, Will, shut up. No, but you might be saying, Will, please stop it.
I am.
Sean is. You see, Sean's been listening the whole time. Thank you, Sean. Well, Sean, guess what? BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist who you can start communicating with in under 48 hours. First of all, not a crisis line, it's not self-help, it's professional therapy done securely online, and it's available for clients worldwide. So you can log into your account anytime and you send a message to your therapist, and you'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change therapists if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/smartless. That's better, H-E-L-P, and join the over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. Special offer for SmartLess listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/smartless.
SmartLess gets support from HelloFresh. Fall is super busy. I call it autumn, but a lot of people call it fall, but either way it's the same thing. But HelloFresh recipes save time you'd otherwise spend meal planning, shopping, and chopping so you can get back to what matters. With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. HelloFresh's family-friendly menu is a big win for back-to-school season with easy, delicious recipes for drama-free dinners. You can choose from 50 menu and market items every week, from vegetarian meals and calorie-smart choices to extra special gourmet options. There's something for everyone to enjoy, with recipes designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. The other night, Scotty and I made Thai coconut pork meatballs the other night. They were so good with the rice and the green beans and the peanuts. It tasted like it came from a restaurant. It was so delicious, and we had so much fun making it. So go to HelloFresh.com/SmartLess14 and use code SmartLess14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/SmartLess14. Promo code SmartLess14 for up to 14 free meals and free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
All right, back to the show.
I will say it does seem overwhelming, but also there I can see your passion for, even as you talk about it. Yeah, the sort of, you have this excitement about all of it, and
It's process. It's not the film. Like whenever it comes out, if it says Ali on it, well, that's for you guys, right? But I'm doing the same thing. Somebody asked me earlier about putting my head on the pillow. Like all I want to know is that I made a film better that day.
Yeah, right.
That's so great.
The best moment was mixing the Civil War series, where you know how it is, you're laying in the different tracks, and we hadn't laid down the gunshot at Ford's Theater.
Yeah.
And we'd done everything else. We'd gotten the Arena Stage Theater that put on Our American Cousin, all the tiny, Victorian, "And custody be gone," and door slams and footfalls and laughter and people coughing and the narrator and whatever the music was. But we hadn't laid in the bullet, and where I was saying, okay, it's all analog. Back in the mixers, Lee Dichter, great feature film mixer, Woody and Spike and, Marty and everybody, and at Sound One in the Brill Building. And we're going, and he looks around at me and I yell, "Stop," just before it comes to rest on the bullet. And we just sat there, tears rolling down our cheeks. And then I nodded to him. He went back, laid the bullet down. But the best moment was just for a moment not having killed Abraham Lincoln, just held him from death.
Oh, wow.
From the moment. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, you get to play with history.
Yeah, with just amazing stuff. The laws of storytelling, as you know, are the same for me and Steven Spielberg. And I talked to him about it. I interviewed him on a stage in Washington, and we realized it's the same thing. He can make shit up and I can't, but it's the same laws of storytelling.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
But your ability to create these incredibly compelling moments, having your hands tied with the fact of the story. In other words, you can't embellish a big, crescendo ending for dramatic satisfaction. You are a slave to what the story was and what the ending is. And so your ability to craft the lead up to and the framing of is unmatched. And I'd say that in front of Spielberg. I mean, it's incredible what you do, and I just can't thank you enough for doing it.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Shelby Foote in the Civil War called me up and he said, "God's the greatest dramatist."
Yeah.
Because you just, suddenly you win the war on Friday, Good Friday, and you figure that by Tuesday night you're ready, you got some free time, you'll go to the theater.
Yeah.
You can't make that shit up.
I forgot to mention Shelby Foote.
I stopped drinking because of Shelby Foote, because we'd be on the seventh, bourbon, and I'd be under the table, and he'd be talking away, and I'd be like, "Oh man, I can't do this anymore."
Where did you get the discipline, the instinct to ignore good in the pursuit of great? Because a lot of people will just stop at good, and that's just good enough.
I think moving up here helped me 42 years ago this week.
Yeah.
I had finished shooting most of the Brooklyn Bridge film, and I needed a real job in New York, and I could easily put the film footage up on top of the refrigerator and then boom, wake up and I'm 45 and didn't finish that novel the way the ad guy. So I moved up here where I could live for nothing, and the first film got nominated for an Academy Award, and people said, "Come back to New York, going to LA." I go, "No, I'm going to stay here," because I realized that dynamic of what we do required an amount of time, and you could build a community of people who have the patience and understand the respect for the process. So when we finish it, but we're doing the same thing every day. We're just trying to make a film better.
Do you live in a small town up there, Ken?
It is looks like Currier and Ives.
Yeah, and do people stand outside and go, that's where that crazy filmmaker lives? He lives in that
People
weird...
drive by, but they leave me alone. It's really great. Any kind of celebrity plus 50 cents gets a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? It's like they care more about whether if my neighbor's not feeling well, I shovel their drive,
Yeah, of course. No. I spent enough time in New England to know that the fact that you're a celebrity makes them want to pay less attention to you.
The biggest thing that happened is about 10 or 15 years ago, I was giving some talk in town, and I said, look, I realize that maybe my great-great-great-grandchildren have a chance to be on the volunteer fire department, right?
Yeah.
About 2 or 3 years ago, a guy that I know who comes at 4 a.m. to fix your cracked pipes, who's a volunteer on the EMS, came and brought me a T-shirt that said Walpole Volunteer Fire Department. It was like, I died and gone to heaven. It was just like...
That's so crazy, because Jason used to often have to fix his crack pipe at 4 a.m. But but I used to... I
was wondering who was going to take that one.
I was going to...
Man, I didn't even see that either. Oh,
I know.
God. Sorry about it.
Is there a filmmaker, Ken, that you admire? Is there a doc in your genre, in your world, that you're like...
Oh, yeah, lots. I love Fred Wiseman, who does cinema verite. I've dabbled in it. The Central Park Five is close. Another film I made on these dyslexic kids learning to memorize and recite the Gettysburg Address. But it's, I love that. I love what Errol Morris does, the highly stylized stuff of that. Werner Herzog is a good friend of mine, and he and I are like total opposites of what we do. But
he's a total opposite of everybody, it seems like. This guy's
we were on a panel once, and he looked at me and he said, I'm interested in an ecstatic truth. My friend Ken is interested in an emotional truth. And he turned to Michael Moore and he said, you, with your big belly hanging out, you're interested in a physical truth. And then he looked at D.A. Pennebaker, the great cinema verite guy, and said, and you, I think you're my enemy. Cinema verite is the cinema of accountants.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
I don't know who that is.
You got to see his film, My Best Fiend, which is Werner Herzog's relationship with Klaus Kinski. Which is just, it's phenomenal. And Werner Herzog, and I say this with a lot of respect and love, is a fucking nut job in the best way.
Best way.
But so that must be an interesting.
Well, he's gotten into documentaries, after 2 or 3 decades, and still does feature stuff. But he's really gotten into documentaries, and it's so different. And it's just he will run through every stop sign that I will politely, put on the brakes and look both ways and proceed with caution, and he doesn't care.
Do your kids want to do what Dad does, or?
Well, I've got 4 daughters. The oldest, Sarah, has been working with me for 10 years, and her husband was working with me for longer. My second daughter, Lily, is the principal in Jack's Media, which does Samantha Bee and Jesus and Marrow and Search Party and Broad City.
Right.
Those are all her shit, and she's great. And then I got a 16-year-old gal who is interested in history, and a 10-year-old gal who makes movies. She goes, Dad, I'm going to make a movie, and I'll be right back. And she comes in 2 minutes and comes back with this thing, and I go, how did you do that? I can't even tie my shoes.
Were you a great student in school?
Yeah, I was pretty good, but I really thought I'd be an anthropologist, which is what my dad was. My mom was sick the whole time with cancer, died when I was 11. And the psychologist, maybe to answer the question earlier from Jason, I went to him one day, my late father-in-law, and he said, I said, I seem to be keeping my mom alive. I couldn't remember to be present the date she died. It was always approaching and then receding. And he said, and I bet you as a kid you blew out your candles wishing she'd come back alive. I said, how'd you know? He goes, look what you do for a living. You wake the dead. You make Abraham Lincoln and Jackie Robinson come alive. Who do you think you're really trying to wake up?
Wow.
And so a lot of the passion is that if my mom hadn't died, we wouldn't be talking. If I hadn't gone to Hampshire College and met a couple of still photographers, Jerome Liebling and Elaine Mays, we wouldn't be talking. I wouldn't have had the guts to start my own company and say, no, I'm just going to do it my way. Every film I've made is a director's cut. The better way of putting it is there are no complaints, and the even better way is saying, if you don't like something, it's all my fault. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like being a bully and doing a 2-hour documentary just so that you can wrap up the Academy Award with no competition whatsoever?
No, you know what? I got nominated twice for Brooklyn Bridge, which was 1 hour, and for Statue of Liberty, which was 1 hour, and we didn't win, which was fine.
Well, third time's a charm.
And then the Civil War, we had like a really great score, but somebody on the committee couple people blackballed us, and it didn't even get nominated because it was, quote, TV. And then we were supposedly the lock for the Central Park 5 film, and it didn't even make the final cut. So, this is about feature films, and the documentaries branch is, I think, trying to improve. And it doesn't matter. People said, well, don't you feel bad about having to get all these grants, make you give it to PBS? I said, no. I traded for a slightly smaller screen. I still go to festivals where, we go every year to Telluride, which is the best festival on earth,
Sure.
and get to Cannes sometimes and go to New York, and it's great. But
Do you take 95 when you go to New York?
no.
Okay,
You take
good.
91 down to the Merritt, and then the
that's
Merritt
smart.
to
You
the
take the Merritt,
to the
of
cross
course.
county,
Of
to the
course.
Hutch, to the cross county, to the West Side Highway.
To the
Come on.
sawmill, to the sawmill.
Well, Sawmill for
like 2
2
seconds.
miles.
I
Yeah,
know.
till you get to the Bronx.
But don't rule it out because then you'll get screwed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ken, are you a Red Sox fan?
Is the Pope Catholic?
Yeah.
Yes, of course I am. I believe in rooting for the place. I've been in New England since '71. So when I went to college.
Who's a bigger Red Sox fan, you or Doris Kearns Goodwin?
Oh God! You know what? She had the earlier love of the Dodgers.
Or Mike Barnacle?
Well, Mike is the best both of these people are good friends of mine. The love is the same, and while he's pretty cool customer, Doris and I are as neurotic as you could possibly be about the Red Sox, and I'm like, my latest thing is to step out and say, not only does Big Papi deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but he's the greatest Red Sox player ever.
Wow.
Because the way that will just bristle up the Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski crowd. But there's, Babe Ruth, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Three World Series.
I will say this: I was at that game in 2004 when Big Papi hit that home run when the Yankees were up 3-0.
Yeah.
David Cross. In fact, Jason was there, but Jason left early because he had to fly back to Hollywood because he had to go to a Hollywood elite party. But David Cross and I stayed. And we watched that which was the greatest comeback. And then they went
The greatest
to finally,
thing ever. I went on that fourth
incredible.
game when the Yankees went ahead fairly early. I was in New York actually, and I went to Lincoln Center because I'm friends with Winton, and I just thought, okay, I'll drown. And I was walking around, and I kind of put it out of my mind, figuring it was just like '03, the year before we just got screwed. It's over. And I watched this whole concert, and then I hear this guy in the next seat, he goes, fuck, they're tied. And I went, what? And I ran out of Lincoln Center, and I called my then wife, and who hates baseball. And she goes, it's a game of circumstances. I said, yeah, what the fuck is happening? Tell me what happened. She goes, I don't know, it's just tied. And then by the time I got, into the subway and back, I sat there like red buttons in Atari. Does that reference mean anything to you guys?
I know red buttons, but not
Okay, so there's a great John Ford film called Hatari about African guys, and he designs this net that will, with a rocket, shoot over a tree so they can trap these monkeys that they'll take back to the zoo. And he's so nervous about it, he doesn't watch it. And so he misses this amazing thing, and he spends the rest of the movie in his cup saying, tell me about it again. Anyway, it's great, and then I just didn't miss anything afterwards. And my daughter and son-in-law were future son-in-law were at the sixth game, the bloody sock game, and
It's incredible. So what that documentary did for me with baseball, I'm a huge classical music fan, and I'd love to become as passionate about jazz or even country music. If I watch jazz or if I watch the country music one, will I get the same?
Jason's saying, could anything make him passionate about anything? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, as long as Ken Burns does a film about it, I'm going to fall in love with
He's
it.
aching to feel.
If I had that mythical dinner party, I'd invite Abraham Lincoln. But I'm more interested. I would invite Muhammad Ali and Louis Armstrong.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So watch jazz first before country?
No, they're all related. They're what commerce and convenience makes us put silos around this stuff.
Yeah, stop trying to rank everything.
All of the great, the pantheon, the Mount Rushmore of country music
pantheon.
all had black teachers, right?
Yeah.
Right,
And when
yeah.
Ray Charles had creative control of an album for the first time, his first album of his own design was Modern Sounds in Country and Western Music, and the number one hit of 1962, the summer of 1962, is I Can't Stop Loving You by Ray Charles singing Don Gibson's country song, and it's a black soul singer singing a country voice. It is...
Wow.
It's
incredible.
unbelievable, and there's just no borders. Look, the best-selling country single of all time is by Lil Nas X,
Yeah.
who is a black gay
Wow.
rapper.
Wow.
This is where, look, here's my last shtick, I promise, is that I've been making films for 45 years, almost 50 years about the U.S., but I've also been making films about us. And the thing I learned in country music, Jason, is that there's only us. There's no them. And if anyone tells you there's a them, which is what everybody's doing these days, run away from them. There's only us.
Right.
Wow. Ken
Oh,
Burns.
Great.
What a way to end. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I mean, it's what an honor to have you. I don't know about these guys, but I could talk to you all day.
No,
Yeah,
Same.
for sure. You're saying it was who you wanted at
9
dinner.
parts?
I want you
9
to-
parts?
9 parts. You want to do
We've
it?
never had a guest. I don't think we've ever had a guest where we have talked over each other so much, trying to get in there with a question.
Yeah.
We're all three of us just completely
Yeah.
enamored with you, and
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah, salutations on all the incredible work you've done for the last 45,
Yeah,
whatever
thank you,
plus
Ken, for
years.
all
Just
of that
really
work.
an incredible body
And
work.
so much more to come.
And so excited about the Muhammad Ali documentary that's coming out in September. We're really excited about it. It's so great. Like I said, I just started it, and just all wishing you all the best and so much success and all good things in your life, Ken.
Thank you. It's
for
been
being
really
here.
great.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks. Great to be with
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Ken. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Well,
Scotty's obsessed with the Roosevelts. He's seen it like 10 times.
I have not seen that one.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's plenty of his that I haven't seen because he has been so prolific.
Yeah.
But my God, the ones I have seen, and there are a lot of them.
It sounds like the only one you've seen is the baseball one.
No, it's the one I talk about because it's just baseball's my passion.
Yeah,
but
because it's the one you've seen.
You know what I'm going to do, though? I'm going to watch each one of them.
you don't have enough time.
Yeah, no, I'm going to, like, one a night, one every other night. That's what I'm doing.
Listen,
Well, no, I'm talking about like all of them though. I mean, Vietnam's 10 parts, the war is 10 parts. I mean,
I'm going to do it all.
Yeah, I'll be there right there with you right after I finish driving back from Will's house after watching Ali. Will, I'm coming over for that.
listen, the war is really good.
Incredible.
Vietnam is really, really good too. And
I do want to watch jazz and country music too.
They're all really great.
And
Will, you will
Yeah.
never beat that as a guest. That's your best guest ever. I
Yeah,
just
he's
such a fan of
incredible.
his.
yeah, no, me too.
But you know what? All of his filmmaking is completely fair and impartial. None of it is
Yeah, doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't seem.
biased.
Oh,
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Sorry.
Biased.
Yeah.
Biased.
Never biased.
SmartLess.
SmartLess is 100% organic and artisanally handcrafted by Bennett Barbaco, Michael Grant Terry, and Rob Armjarf. The next episode will be out in a week wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can listen to it right now early and ad-free on Amazon Music or by subscribing to Wondery Plus in the Wondery app.
SmartLess.